Well, hello, all you beautiful people. Happy Tuesday, not Monday, Tuesday. And I hope you're all having a wonderful week and making sure that you're warm or cool or whatever. And yay, beverage of choice. We're in for part 6 of Simone Anderson's Epstein. What was he really doing? Tonight we're going to be talking about the enforcement arm of I always get this wrong. I always pride myself on being quite a good pronouncer. Admiralty Law. Okay, if I got it wrong, you know what I mean, right? Anyway, but before we go ahead with Simone, I want to just quickly bring up the schedule for this week. Okie doke. So, of course, now it's Tuesday, right now as we speak. Simone Anderson. And then on Wednesday, of course, we have Double Trouble with Jesse again. We're going to be talking about Oprah's assets in the first show. And yeah, the second one actually very, very interesting. And I can't remember the name because I know I'm going to say it wrong. But join us for that on Wednesday, tomorrow. Thursday, the Mirror Universe. Join me for that. Looking at how our protective patterns mirror that with which we surround ourselves. So join me for that. And then, of course, drop in with Shanti on Friday, busy doing the South Africa series. Very interesting. If you missed last week's, I spoke a lot about the Dompas, or the digital Dompas, as we call it, which has now become the digital ID, right? And this week, and the Shatauri. The Shatauri is according to Credo Mutwa, the lizard beings that inhabit South Africa, which, right, all over the world we have that, no matter where you are, or Africa, not only South Africa. But what I do there is I look at the patterning of the Shatauri. So rather to take it away from the physical, but see how they use that pattern as a architecture of extraction. So very interesting. And this week I'll be looking at how they harvest us, the harvest. So in which ways they're harvesting us. Friday night, Guy Anderson. Join me again for Guy Anderson. And then, of course, Sunday, the Sunday Loop, where we watch reruns of earlier shows, or we air shows that have been recorded earlier and haven't been aired before. So welcome, everybody. Nice to see you all. Mornay, Lisa, Willard, Leanne. Yay. Simone, welcome back. Nice to see you again.
Hello. How's life
How are
down in
you?
South Africa?
Life is getting good. We're good, yeah. It's a good time. Things seem to be
I've been
calming
keeping up
down.
with your cat
Yeah?
on Facebook. Your cat always has his adventures.
And I mean, they know they're not allowed to catch the doves. And of course, you all know by now, I feed all the wild birds around here. So they know they're not allowed to catch the doves. So they surreptitiously creep in between feeding time, and they just lie there, just looking, just looking. The other day, I saw feathers on the lawn. So they were
That's
obviously took
funny.
a swipe when I wasn't around. But it's very cute. I mean, when the doves come into my house, they just like stand around, walk around, no problem. Cats just look at them. Peace. We have peace.
Exactly. Animals make such a huge difference in our lives, and I hope everybody can share their life with one.
Oh, absolutely. They're amazing. I tell you, they're amazing. They are so incredible. And, they're so tuned into us as humans. When we have a bad moment or a day or whatever, they really are there. Um, my cat, she's not affectionate, but she knows when I need her. And she'll jump up and she'll be next to me, or she'll claw me. She loves to give me her claw, but not a hard one, just a duh, you know, just to get me out of my funk. They're amazing. I mean, lots of other things as well, but yeah,
Well, I think they're
animals.
intuitive, that they may
Mm.
read minds, cats. I think that
Oh, very much so.
the world is kind of a mystery, and our true like self and all that has been hidden from us. And if you look at
Yeah,
ancient pictures, they all show us like with the animals, not as the animals below us or above us, but like living together with the animals. And cats and dogs, I think, are one of the few remaining ones that we still
yeah.
have around us, right, from that system.
Yeah, with animals, I believe were really meant to be our companions. It was our choice whether we ate them or killed them or whatever. But they're meant to
And
be our
it's
companions.
dogs like Jeffrey Epstein who gave animals a real bad name, right? He's the dog,
Yeah.
and that's who we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
And
Interesting. I'm really looking forward to our show. We've got a couple of clips, two clips, in fact, by the Flat Earth Tyler. I know I've actually shown some previous clips of his as well. He really is good with
he
how he
really
picks things
is.
and how he puts it together. So yeah, I think you guys are familiar with some of the stuff of his as well. That, as you were saying, coincides with what you're doing, right? I don't know, whatever it is these dodgy creatures of the night do. My word, they're crazy. Huh. So over to
So
you,
did you
young
want to
lady.
start the clip? So
Oh,
this clip, okay, so as I'm researching these people and these entities, really, because the Bible tells us that we're not ruled over by flesh and blood, we're fooled over by principalities. And so I am approaching my research as unveiling some of that information. And as I study these people and as I study their bloodlines, and as I see that Jeffrey Epstein's probably not really dead and the people around him are continuing what he was doing, it really got me diving deeper because I am writing a book and a chapter is based on this. And I just didn't feel like I was getting to what the real meat of it was, even though the premise of my research is that we're not ruled by flesh and blood, but by principalities. So why don't you go ahead and show this one video and it kind of opens that up, and then we'll go on to the next crazy one.
perfect. I'm going to show.
What if I told you all the presidents, and I mean all of them, were still alive? But I wasn't going to just speculate on it. I was going to prove it. Here's Teddy Roosevelt. Here's Robin Williams. And that's both of their wives. And here's Andrew Jackson and his wife. And, well, what if we paired a younger picture with Miss Jackson with Miss Maxwell? Do you think that they might just fit pretty well down to the lips, the nose, and eye placement? And what if this goes back to our very first president and his wife, Martha? Funny how he looks a little more feminine than her. And a subscriber, Samantha, pointed out the resemblance of Glenn Close and George Washington. Funny, Glenn, especially spelled like Glenn Close, Glenn. It's a funny name for a girl. You want to see something even funnier? Here's Glenn Close's husband. And, well, do you recognize him? How about now? That's Martha Washington. Glenn Close's husband, Martha Washington. And I'm going to stop after this one for a second. Here's the 25th president, William McKinley, and I couldn't help but notice how identical he looked to Dumb and Dumber star Jeff Daniels. Oh, and the first time I ever happened to see this, they started talking about Dumb and Dumber randomly on the TV in the very first second. And you know what's even funnier than that is how he's got a little mark right there. Good old President McKinley. And oh, look at that. So does Jeff Daniels. I did a 10-minute video on this that I'm testing out for the subscribers of mine, because if anything's going to get censored and shut down and give me account bans and strikes and warnings, it's this one. And let me tell you what that whole video is about. It's how they're not human. Here's Alec Baldwin and President Fillmore. And I say they're not human, and they tell us what they are. Just like the book of Enoch says, fallen angels are referred to as stars. Go watch the 10-minute video. I'll release it eventually, but I need to test the waters because it's a doozy, and I think it explains exactly what's going on. But of course, all this is for entertainment purposes. I'm sure that they all just are doppelgangers.
Shall I go right ahead and do the other one, or do you want to comment on that first?
Why don't you? Because it kind of pulls together what we're talking about and why these people don't get caught and what we're really dealing with. And as we see the matrix fracture, we're going to see more and more of this, right? So I'm not sure what it is. Is this the unveiling? Is this the apocalypse, which literally means the unveiling, and we're going to see the world as it really is? Or are they, the fallen angels will rise again? I think that's why they're looking for these different blood types, because they're looking for the people that have the serpent seed, and they're, because they'll rise up. And a lot of what we're talking about right now in the Bible, it says that the beast who gave the whore its power, and the whore is a system, a structure that separates God from man. So we see the beast system taking down the Vatican, the financial system, the military industrial complex. These are the whore of Babylon system. But then what happens is the 10 kings rise with Satan to battle God. So I believe this is where we're at right now in this kind of prophecy that we've been told about. And so I'm just following my information. And I think this one that's coming up will give people a good explanation of why I think what I think. And so do other people.
Okay. 10 minutes or 9 minutes. Enjoy.
You still don't believe in fallen angels, huh? Interesting. Well, after this video, you just might. What you first need to know is 4 years ago, I didn't believe in angels, fallen angels. I didn't believe in God, and I definitely didn't believe in the Bible. And then I was shown something about stars that sent me on a truth-seeking mission. And what I'm going to ask you to do for this video is clear your mind of any previously held beliefs and just look at things with fresh eyes. The mind of a child, perhaps. And let me take you on a journey that might just blow your mind. Because I'm going to build my case, and then I'm going to prove to you that fallen angels are here, walking amongst us. So buckle up, Buttercup. What you first need to know is that there are two sets of fallen angels. There's the third that rebelled with Satan, the third of all angels. And then there's also, from the book of Enoch, the 200 angels that were supposed to watch over humanity, but they took human wives and then were banished from heaven. 200 of them. And you know there are roughly 200 confirmed impact craters all across the earth. And, well, have you ever heard how they tell us the truth in plain sight?
We were not stone then, but light. It was not our place to interfere. Yet we chose to try and help mankind. And when we disobeyed the Creator, He punished us. We were encrusted by your world. Rock and mud shackled our fiery glow.
There's 200 of them. Keep that in mind. There's also approximately 200 countries across the world. Interesting number. And remember, the 200 watchers, well, they were banished to Earth for taking human wives. We'll get back to that, but let's go to the third of all angels that fell. You see, 1/3 of all angels rebelled, and this idea comes from the book of Revelation, which uses a symbol of a dragon sweeping 1/3 of the stars. And both the Bible and Apocrypha, not apocalyptic, texts like the Book of Enoch use stars frequently as symbols for angels and also fallen angels. And how many fell again? Well, a third of all angels, and a third is 0.33. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. And who are these guys, and what do they get? Well, they're Hollywood celebrities, right? But what else do we call them? We call them stars. And the Bible and Book of Enoch talk about stars as representations of angels, including fallen angels. And they just happen to get stars on the Walk of Fame. Oh, and do you know it originally started with 199? And well, here's a star. That's John Travolta. And remember how I said they tell us the truth in movies? Well, have you ever seen this movie he was in? The movie Michael, where he played a fallen angel? And have you seen how he's been in the news lately for looking oh so youthful at 70 years and how it sparked widespread public attention for how youthful he looks? And not only that, but how he looks strikingly like this guy from the 1800s. That's a real photo. But I also noticed how he looks like someone else. He also looks an awful lot like this guy, Joe Namath. Oh, and what's that say up there? Stars of the NFL? And well, here's John, and here's Joe, and they even have the exact same butt chin. But it's not just the butt chin and their extremely similar looks. There's more. Joe and John, and excuse my former self, but they also share some very similar markings on their face. And well, what if fallen angels weren't just here in spirit, but like I said, encrusted in our earth, like that movie showed? Humans were said to be made from the dust of earth, and well, those two blemishes are in the same spot, and those two, and also a very specific and unique scar in their chin. You see it right here. See it here and right there. The same scar in the same spot on the same side of their face. Not to mention the exact same butt chin. And while I keep saying they tell us the truth in the movies and TV and also the music, Scar Tissue, that I wish you saw. There's a song called Drops of Jupiter. Tell me, did you fall for the shooting star, one without a permanent scar? Don't think those stars won't align under your scars, I pray. You are like a shooting star in the rain. Even old Taylor Swifty here, at least you know exactly who your friends are. They're the ones with matching scars. What if the stars on the Walk of Fame aren't just a cute representation, but it's them telling us who they are? And why did a third come down here in rebellion? Well, they wanted to be worshipped like the Most High. And why did the 200 Watchers get banished down here? Well, not because they were prideful, but because they rebelled against divine law and chose human women. And remember, they tell us, you want to see what John Travolta's wife looks like? Joe and John and Joe's wife, and can you guess whose wife that is? Who looks oh so exact? It's in the eyes for me. Well, that's Joe's wife, and that's John's wife. Because they're not doppelgangers, they're not clones, they're not vampires, they're fallen angels, my friends. And they've been here a long time. A lot longer than that. And remember, that's John Travolta and Joe Namath. John Travolta, who just happens to have the middle name Joe. And John Travolta, who has two sons, one whose name is Jet. Joe was a star for the Jets. And have you ever heard of this movie, City of Angels? Well, it stars Nicolas Cage, and it's about an angel who gives up his heavenly abode because he falls in love with a woman. Well, here's Andy Kaufman, and here's Nicolas Cage. And here's Andy Kaufman and Nicolas Cage's women. Those are supposed to be different women. Nicolas Cage, Andy Kaufman, and their wives. And you want to see something else interesting the Bible talks about? It talks about angels' appearance and how they had a human likeness, but each had 4 faces. Well, let me show you something about Four Faces. Here's Steve Carell, and here's Alice Cooper, and here's Cousin Larry from Perfect Strangers, and well, I think they have more than four faces, my friends. Because here's Dusty Highland of CrossFit, and here's his wife, and here's Steve Carell's wife. And the interesting thing about CrossFit is there's a lot of them there. In fact, I read this book back in my teaching days called The Supple Leopard by Kelly Starrett. And well, if you don't know, El is singular for Elohim, and oftentimes it is linked to angelic names. Michael, Gabriel, Azazel, but they like to put it other places as well. And they always like to tell us. Kel, El, and his name even has star in it, so there's double here. And back when I read this book, I always thought I recognized Kelly. And here's Cat L, E star et, and here's Ryan Reynolds. And you might not see it like these eyes do, but they always have scars that remain, kind of like these ones right here on his lip, just like Ryan Reynolds has on his lip. Do you see? 1, 2, 3, just like Ryan in the exact same spot. And it's all of them. If you know them from TV, they're the fallen. And whether you think they're good, like singer, songwriter, beach lover Jack Johnson, or evil, like Jeff Epstein here, it's all of them. And they all play multiple roles, deceiving humanity. Even the ones you think are nicest, like Robin Williams, and that's his wife, and that's Teddy Roosevelt, and that's his wife. And they've been deceiving humanity for a millennia. That's a 3,000-year-old pharaoh.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah. That is, I mean, it really is, when we look at, even twins, identical twins don't have features that are identical to their sibling, right? So it's like crazy because there are certainly things that the moles, marks on the faces, and of course the ears, noses, that sort of thing. It's amazing to me. And how he spots it is incredible. He really is good at connecting these dots, this guy.
I mean, who knew he was a football coach in high school? Who knew he had this special skill? But once your eyes are open, you can see all kinds of things that you never saw before. In the same way you and I are seeing things we saw our whole life, but now that we're older and we know what to look for, we're seeing all this message all this time. So I think that it kind of, the whole thing, and they didn't show on this one, there's a guy living in Palm Beach named Palm Beach Pete that just tried to run for mayor. And it was really weird because they said he had a DNA test. I'm not sure if this is just kind of a crazy offshoot of the story. I haven't been able to verify it, but apparently he got kicked out of the mayoral race in Palm Beach. But apparently he's flying on Epstein's jet. He's filming from his property. And now they're just laughing at us. So it's really upsetting once you understand. I guess they're just making fun of the people who know, because they're kind of like, what are you going to do about it? And one of the things for me is I've worked and lived in California my whole life. I've met some of these people. Like, I've literally been to dinner. I've been at award ceremonies. I've been, working on a movie that they were in. So really what's crazy for me is I'm actually brushing up against these people right here in California because I live in Los Angeles, the city of the angels.
Well, that's exactly it, right? Is it the fallen angels?
Well, right.
Sense, because of Hollywood right there. Isn't it? It's right there, isn't it?
Of course. In Hollywood, there's no holly trees in Hollywood. Hollywood are witches' wands. That's what they make witches' wands from. And the original movies in Hollywood, there's this light installation that's right at the beginning of Hollywood. And a lot of the industry, when they say Hollywood, it's really moved over into the valley where there's a lot more space and not like overcast. So the shooting is better. So it's really back over. But if you go into Hollywood today, which is primarily gay, all the clubs and all the things. But at the beginning of it, they have Baal. They have this installation from one of the very first silent movies ever made in Hollywood, and it telling you who the people in Hollywood are. And also Hollywood is a lake in northern Switzerland, like the Vatican, where they sacrifice a lot of children. So historically, Hollywood, from the people that came over from Europe, they're bringing kind of that same activity that they had going on here in the Baal worship and that. So it once you put it all together, it seems unrelated, but once you put it all together,
It's so insane. Yeah, it's so insane how it just all fits together.
And I know I sent you, we've been talking a lot about frequency. And I know I'm trying to tie all this together because this stuff is just coming to me when I'm seeing things. It's not like, and I'm seeing messages, and sometimes it takes me a few years to understand what the message means because I don't have the knowledge to interpret what they're telling me. But as I've grown in this, and as I've watched and interviewed so many people, I'm starting to see the messaging. So right now we're in a frequency. Right. And they're literally. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of time, what we're in right now is we're in the physical world, right? And phi cycle, that literally means that's what the word physical comes. So the phi is the energy that we move around the world in. In the Taurus field is like growth, midlife, decay, death, and you kind of go in this shape of circles. So this is the physical energy force that is literally emanating from our body. And I got this from watching your show. I didn't get this particular information, but I was watching the show with Beverly Rhodes and how she was talking about how vampires, what they're doing when they're possessing the children is they're harvesting their energy, right? So they're getting into our phi cycle. And this is the invisible circle of energy that's around our body. And we can't see it and we don't know it's there. We're not taught in today's world about this Taurus field. That's literally the physical form of our reality. So you can go over to the next slide. Okay, so this is literally the phi cycle. This is the energy that 5G, I believe, is affecting us, which the negative energy is affecting us because we're more than this physical field. This is our spiritual field. So that's what they're affecting us when they're hitting us with the different chemicals, right? Because what's in the stuff they're spraying in the air, like aluminum and stuff, that's interfering with our natural cycle. And they're 5G in that, they're interfering and they're beaming information into our phi cycle. So it's literally changing our perception of the reality of what the world really is. And so I pulled up these documents after I saw Beverly's. And if you want to show me Beverly's images. Okay. So this is what she calls the vampire structure. And you notice we always see these things in a circle. And you've got these images where they have us trapped in this reality, right? And this is like literally what one of these demonic entities looks like over a human body before it comes in and takes. And you can see the Leviathan arms, right? You can see the Leviathan in there, right? So literally see how it's the same shape as our phi cycle? And what does it look like? The head of a serpent. So, and then we always see like from the Mecca, show me the picture of the top of the, so right here, they're controlling your spiritual realm, right? The lower body is hell. See how we can see this is the mosque near me, and how I explained in my Islamic series of who Islam is really worshiping, just like the Catholic Church. And see, they're harvesting the energy out of the church and they're trapping it in that system. So right there, it's showing you that church is harvesting the energy of the Phi cycle and the vampire energy, because that's what they're taking as they're done this is why we're in a spiritual battle. And I hope I'm explaining this right, because I see all these images and all of a sudden I just start tying everything together. So I'm open to any of your readers and any of our followers adding anything into this, because it seems remote, but it's actually very together. And once you understand what they're telling you, then we can read the messaging. So I believe, and this is like we always see in the Kaaba, we see this image on Baal, right? So it's much more than just the physical form of possessing us. It's actually harvesting our spiritual energy and blocking us again, blocking us from our true epiphany with our Creator.
It's so interesting that you it's just something you said now. It's like you can see what they're doing in their way, and the same way that the Catholic Church is doing it in their way. And of course, because we're looking again. I mean, if we look right now where the world is, there is Catholicism or what looks like, right? Catholicism versus Zionism, right?
No,
But
it's the same thing.
Exactly. But really at the end of the day, it's all about, and that's what Jesse said all the time, that Islam being the religion of the Antichrist, because we will look like, it's like Catholicism versus Islam now. But at the end of the day, it's exactly the same God they serve. It's like brothers disguising to the world that they're actually holding hands, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, in my book, I'm going to present evidence that Islam was financed by the Pope, who wanted to bring the Middle East back into the Roman Empire, and that they still, if you go to the Vatican today, they literally have put Muslim prayer rooms all over the Vatican. Frequently, on a daily basis, you can see the mullahs visiting the Pope. So it's no longer just a theory, but I will be outlining in that book. Muhammad supposedly couldn't read or write, but according to the Catholic Church, he was educated in a lot of this stuff and told what to do, because the Catholic Church itself is the Antichrist system. Islam is just an extension. And you really go back into the Moors, right? They brought this kind of stuff into Europe. And the Moors, I'm getting off on too many different topics right now, but these are just things I see and I pull together, and I'm hoping that maybe you guys can see what I'm seeing. Again, I'm not a super expert, but I get these images in my head and they just mean something to me. And so I search them out until I figure out what they mean. And do you want to go?
Yeah. Into the next one is that one.
Yeah. Okay. So see how those 4 dots go up, right? And they've got that symbol at the top. You're going to find that all over the churches. And I believe that's also the spiritual realm. It's kind of capturing that same 4-pointed, right? And it's trapped in this temple, right? And you've got Ashar, right? The demon and child sacrifice, pedophilia god right there. Then you've got the different rooms where you can tell that they're practicing different cults and worshiping different things at different parts of that church. So again, I see the symbology. You've got the Opus Dei, which is the child trafficking and human trafficking symbol right there. And, it's showing you. So to me, this is another symbology, especially this top part right here at the temple, because what's the temple? Where's your temple? The third temple isn't a building. It's your reconnection with God. So here we have the temple, and they're blocking our connection to God right there. So I don't know if people can see what I'm talking about. I hope so.
It makes such sense. Oh my goodness, where did Simone go? Wow, that's incredible, actually. When we look at that, I hope Simone's going to join us. Oh, yeah, she is. Okay. Where did you disappear to?
I don't know. I mean, I'm getting so confused with my own readings. But anyways, did that kind of have you been aware of the Taurus cycle and that?
Yes, we've definitely gone through that stuff.
Okay.
And I know,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I'm just actually looking at this because in there, I mean, the little at the top on either side of that middle strip, right? There again, you can see that looks like the Knights of Malta. That the
Yes.
crosses there, you know. So wow.
Well, and the Knights of Malta is where they formed the sovereign military, that it's
Yeah.
international. It doesn't belong to any country. It's the Pope's. So the Knights of Malta has a lot, but even the Vatican sued the Knights of Malta a couple years ago and seized all their assets because the Catholic Church is going bankrupt, and so that the the system is devouring the whore, right? And so we are seeing that system structure at least be brought supposedly to justice, but we'll see how that goes.
It's interesting what Jesse was saying, the same thing about, you know, the whole system is not the way that it should, or that they planned it to be right now. Interesting. There's another vampire one. I don't know if you want
Well,
to.
yeah, well, this is another image of a Leviathan. And this is that one phase I was showing you. And they always have in this egg structure. And you'll
Yes.
notice of different movies, will movies, like now there's these round chairs, and the Men in Black, they sit in these egg chairs when he's going to school. So I've started, we frequently see the egg and in the symbology um, of the Egyptian stuff, and we see the egg and like the Fabergé egg and all that. But what is really the meaning of the egg once we start to understand? So again, this is like our higher self and our lower self, right? Your lower self, hell is at the bottom, heaven is at the top. So our spiritual guide is here. So they're literally capturing our spirit, our essence, our Taurus field, and they're harvesting that energy. And you can see the guy's head kind of looks a little bit like a snake. And when we talk about Leviathan, here is Leviathan right there. And
Wow.
it's much more than a physical space, it's a spiritual space.
It
And see,
is
it's in a
total.
circle, right?
Yeah. And
So
total consumption as well, right?
well, right. That this is when it's taking over your body. That final one I
Mm.
just showed you, that's before it completely consumes your energy. And as Jesse and Beverly and other people, this is the vampire energy. And this is what we see these people harvesting from us, right? And if you've got an entity, maybe if you're always exhausted, you're always tired, you've got something sucking off you. And there are ways for this to be removed from your system, but it's going to take a lot of spiritual awakening, etc. And sometimes they don't let them people go; they just kill the people off. So it's kind of a pretty scary situation. But this is the fixation the elite have with vampires. Didn't you ever wonder why they made so many stupid vampire movies and so many werewolf
Yeah.
movies? They're so
Yeah.
stupid. But
Yeah.
now you know because they're telling us who they are,
Exactly.
right?
Werewolves
And it,
and vampires, and lots of hybrid type creatures that they engage with. Yeah.
well, right,
And
and you
always
know how
carry on.
Oh, you know how they always talk about the vampires kind of are from France, and this is, I start to wonder, like, who was Louis the 15th? Who were these people that they really, right? If the vampires kind of originate there in France, is the history we're being taught? Is that really the history, or is that the rebellion against from the French people against the monarchies and stuff that were ruling over them in this kind of vampire state? I don't know.
Wow. Makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Really does.
And again, this is just me throwing this out there to you guys because I'm just seeing it. So maybe we get back to Jeffrey Epstein, but this, I believe, is something, it's all connected. Okay. And we're talking a lot about frequency and what are they interfering with our frequency? And what is this? This is the United Nations emblem where they have us in a trapped frequency, I believe. And then what is this around us? As Jesse has pointed out, that shows that they're involved in child trafficking, according to Jesse's readings, right? So we're trapped in this frequency where we don't really know who we are, where we are, and what the world truly is. And then we're embraced by this system that's using the children to fuel keeping us in this lower state. And also, if you're an American, the AT&T, which is American Telegraph and Telephone, our largest telephone company, again, with all the satellites in the air, the one that's implementing 5G, 6G, running the military operations, they have this very same similar where they literally have us in a frequency. And the AT&T symbol is actually what got me into this, because I was just looking at it one day because I have that company and I'm like, wait a second, it looks like they have us in a cage and they have us in a frequency field. And so that's how I started going down this chapter.
It's like it looks almost like that Wi-Fi signal, right?
Yes.
But completely encircled and literally taken on the energy of the vampires, because anything that is to do with child trafficking or anything like that, any extraction of energy and of life force, of course, is vampirism, right?
Okay, and if you go to the Vatican and you look where the tomb of Lucifer, and they do the ninth circle cult sacrifices under the statue of St. Peter, which is upside down, inverted. Under that is the tomb of Lucifer. And around the statue is that same image. And what someone explained to me once is those are the shipping lanes under Admiralty Law that we're controlled under. And those are the sectors that each power force has. And that's really, and when you see all of the Roman families, all of those statues that are on top of around St. Peter's, those symbolize all the bloodline families, and they get to take their turn screwing humanity. That's literally the symbology of St. Peter's Square in the Vatican.
Yeah. And everything, it's just, for me again, it's like I'm looking at the thing I'm currently doing on South Africa, right? Because everything is frequency. We know that. So they use the Shatauri lizard frequency. And remember, if we go to what history is saying right now, our species began here in South Africa at the cradle of humankind, right? And so that's the original frequency, but it's been inverted. The whole cradle of humankind right now is overflowing with sewage. And I mean, it's just,
yes.
So think about what that is, what frequency that is, right? And they're all connected. And also, if we look where the cradle of humankind is, it's in a very rich mineral area. So lots of the minerals and whatever that create the frequency, whatever the movement, cradle of humankind is right in the center of it. So what do? They start extracting that. I mean, I'm actually doing a show on that that's coming on Friday. But it's very interesting when you're looking at that. And of course, the frequency of that is the extraction, because the whole planet is built on extraction right now. It doesn't reinforce anything, it extracts land, blood, energy, crops. You are the crop, actually. You are the crop. You are the crop.
Right.
I mean,
And this is what we're really battling. We're not battling each other. We're battling these entities that control the
yeah.
system and the contracts that these people, maybe 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, the contracts they made for their reincarnations or for their future generations to abide by. And
Mm.
therefore, that's why they get the power and the houses and the money and the spoils of the system, as long as they continue to manipulate it. And we just had like a young actress that used to start out at Disney, and she just passed away. And there's a lot of theories about why she was taken out, because again, the Disney is a human trafficking. Disney was a Nazi, and there's all kinds of atrocities that have been committed at Disneyland
Hey,
against
is
children.
that, yeah, for sure.
I
You're
live 10
talking,
minutes from Disneyland.
are
So,
you talking about Hayden
yes.
Panettiere? What
Mhm.
is your take on that? What is your
I didn't check. How old was she? Do you
I think
remember?
36. I literally read what
36.
36.
Again, if she's a star, then she's just taken on a new entity. Sometimes they get taken out because they're not consenting to the system, or they're not consenting to the mind control programs, or they were being reprogrammed in a center. When you find out that, like Whitney Houston, or Britney Spears, when they go back into these centers, they're MK Ultra mind control. So the government goes back in and tortures them a little bit and re-brainwashes them, so they don't get out of the matrix. So I most likely that's what's going on, because of course so many people are coming out of the system. But again, it could just be a psyop. And as we see, she really looks like Hillary Clinton. You should check out the videos that guy just did. He already put one out on her. And so, I mean, these are all theories, but it really is interesting to look at all the data. And
Oh, it is. It really is. And some things, it's just too coincidental. It really, really is. It's too coincidental. So we
in
need to,
Hollywood, they need us to be traumatized. So
yeah.
they're always doing something. If Trump isn't getting what he wants, or the Democrats aren't getting what they want, they just have some psyop. So we all look over here. I mean, Trump is the master of that. I mean, he can get them to go change their, he just says something crazy and then they completely forget. And it's totally about this topic all day. So I think when we get the Hollywood deaths and this kind of stardom kind of stuff, a lot of times it's just part of the, keeping us distracted with things that don't really matter, because that person didn't really die, because they wouldn't have been a star in Hollywood if they weren't part of the system. And so it just have to keep following the circle.
I was actually came across something. I don't know if you're aware of Donald Marshall.
Mm.
Wow, Donald Marshall came out many years ago. He was one of the first people exposing the reptilians. And he's got a lot of, he brought out, he was one of the, I think, if not the first, talking about the Vril energy and stuff like that. And I mean, the cloning centers and blah, blah, blah. And I actually came across something of his yesterday, and he was speaking about the school Hayden. And according to what he's saying, she's a host body for one of these alien creature things that, and I know they do that. They do that. So, I mean, truth is stranger than fiction, right? So we can never discard these things anymore. We past scoffing at this now, right? The only thing is whether it's true or not. Okay, we don't know. But what he's saying is that he's seen her at training centers. She's pretty much sold her soul, as we know they do. for fame, but pretty much has now therefore had to become a host body for one of these
entities.
strange things. Yeah, whatever they are.
Well, and again, we just saw the vampire, how they do get into us. So I think it's real, according to the people heavily involved in this.
You know what I
That's
wanted
what.
to say about the I think the UN logo with the wreaths around it, and it's like almost like, yeah, that's the Earth, that's our world, controlled by frequency, locked in by frequency, and that is controlled by vampires, because it's the vampires that would obviously, as we say, extract the blood, cannibalize kids, the loosh, whatever, vampires on every level.
Right.
So yeah, we are governed by vampires, and there's not even a question around that. All you have to do is look around you. Where are our kids going? We've been listening, if for no other reason, we've been listening to survivors speak for the longest time, how they're forced to drink blood. As kids, they're forced to drink blood, and how they go to these rituals where people are drinking blood. What is that? That's vampirism. So, of course, they are groomed into vampirism from, and that's the use, the extraction of power at the same time, extracting power from people, because they ultimately don't believe they have it within them. That's why they do it.
Well,
So
look at all of the actors and actresses who look 20, 30. They don't even look like they're the same people anymore. It's because they're
they
not
know,
getting.
right? And it's such a, there's so many of them suddenly that are looking absolutely hideous. And some of them, like Kris Jenner, had this facelift, boasting whatever. I mean, she still looks, well, doesn't look like a scarecrow with a skin around it, right? But so many of the others are. I mean, Demi Moore, who are the others? I can't even think. These
Uh,
skinny legs.
Charlize Theron, Kelly Osbourne. I mean, all of a bunch of rock singers, you don't even recognize them anymore. And are you aware of the ancient system of the three crones, the maiden, the mother, and the crone
Well,
in
please
this?
share it. Yeah, but share it, please.
Well, it's an ancient, like they're the three, before we had this kind of religion that we believed in, they believed in the three crones, and that there was goddesses that held up the earth. And then there was three different entities. And that's kind of like what Snow White in those movies are about, where they have the crone and, youth and beauty and all that. So I'm not sure if I'm explaining it really well, but that was literally who they worshiped, and that these entities had those three periods, right? And that the crone is the final stage, and they were harvesting the energy of the younger and the youthful women. And that's what maybe we're seeing in Hollywood. And these
Kids,
women look like
kids,
crones.
kids. So that's why they would. That again makes perfect sense. So, as you say, the crone at the final stage is obviously old and wrinkly, but that in itself is beauty in itself, actually, right? Because you've achieved wisdom, actually. But so haven't been able to move past that stage where they're voluptuous and gorgeous and curvy and, you know, being hit on by all the gorge. It's amazing how they've turned the world into that, right? Wow. That this eternal quest for youth.
Right. And how
And
many movies are based on that? Love Potion number
yes,
9. What was that
yes.
one with Kate Hudson and was it Glenn? No, Roseanne, where they steal the stuff and that she steals her husband. Was it Meryl Streep? I think it was Meryl Streep. And in the end, the two women are fighting over the potion, and they ended up killing off the men and sucking everybody dry around them. And then they're back getting the potion. And so we've seen this a bunch of times acted out in the movies, because the movies are them telling us who they are. And there was movies like Fallen with Denzel Washington. And when you see him interviewed about that movie, they said, how did he do such an amazing job? And he said he would allow an entity to enter him to play the part. You can see people like Beyonce
I was
or
about to say
Gaga.
Beyonce. She has her famous
See them introvert.
Sasha Fierce. I remember seeing an interview with Oprah, and she calls her Sasha Fierce.
Right.
That's,
And
yeah,
apparently
definitely.
you have to let them take you over because eventually they will just take you over.
Mm.
Yeah. My sister is just saying that movie was called Death Becomes Her. So that's a
Right.
whole title right there, right? And they
Wow.
ruin the husband, they ruin everyone around them, they ruin their marriage, they ruin their business, but their quest for eternal youth and beauty is what destroys everything around them. So I think it's kind of symbolic right there.
And it's very interesting what Jessie was saying not too long ago on this topic, where she says everyone is saying is what are they doing? They're running out of adrenochrome or whatever. And she goes, yes, I think to a point that's that. But what she says is that it's not so much that, but more the spiritual entities with which they've made
Yes.
agreements. So that right now would make a lot of sense because, yes, it would make sense that they're not able to harvest the kids as freely anymore, right, as what they were 5 or 10 years ago. So they probably have to go to other means and have facelifts and stuff now. So I guess the plastic surgeons are a lot more busy because they're actually physically doing more facelifts because now the youth boosters aren't there anymore. But the plastic surgeons can only do so much before your face looks like that, right? So to me, it would make sense, actually. All of it goes hand in hand. And that's why you're seeing people like Charlize, like Kelly, like they've had so much surgery. You can't have any more. Or,
Well, and do you remember Charlize Theron's mother murdered her father right before she got famous, right? I was friends with some people that lived down the street from them in South Africa. They belonged to the same golf club. And everyone believed the mother was the one who shot the father, not the other way around.
well,
And there's a sacrifice before someone makes it famous, right? There's usually a death.
well, in my opinion, what I actually heard about that, yes, because originally the story that she told the press over here was that her dad was killed in a car accident.
Right.
And then it came out much later that he was an alcoholic and that the mom actually shot him one night while he was attacking her and Charlize or something like that. But there was a lot of hot rumors about who actually pulled that trigger. Was it the mom or was it the daughter? Because it's true what you say. It was just before she became famous and then, of course, went to America. And the famous story she told was that she was cashing a measly check at the bank teller and she was spotted by a headhunter, or not a headhunter, a model, whatever they call these guys. That's her story. But then you also know. But then
all those headhunters in South Africa.
Yeah. They're all over. Don't you worry. But also, I know people, who work in the SRA, right? I mean, a lot of behind the scenes people, and it's well confirmed that she's born into the system. It's well confirmed that she wasn't just this chance, lucky, beautiful, leggy blonde. She's been well groomed.
Well, people like Elon Musk's father, when he was grandfather, when he was kicked out of Canada for being a communist and overthrowing the country, a lot of these people went and escaped down into South Africa. And that's why you see them allowed to come back into our system. Right?
Yep.
What does South Africa remotely have to do with what's going on in the United States? Not really that much, but we see someone who came to the country 20 years ago in charge of our space program that we spent billions and trillions of dollars developing. And then as soon as it got profitable, it got spun off to him. And this is what you're going to realize. All of our companies and countries' assets are spun off to these people in high levels of power. Once we develop it, we made the computers. The American military made the computers. How did Bill Gates get his hands on it? Right? He didn't even. He was a salesman. He didn't even have any experience in computers. But how all of a sudden at 40 years old did he get handed Microsoft? Because who's his dad? I mean, he's someone who's high level in the system. His father started Planned Parenthood that succeeded in killing 17 million Black people in the United States. So this is the guy that got spun off just randomly. He was nobody before. Nobody knew who he was. That's why they always have to say they started Apple and those companies in a garage, because there's no history of those companies ever existing, because they were spun off. Yeah.
Exactly. And I love that we are getting more awakened to this. So we know these things now. You know, and the same story with Zuckerberg. Didn't he also have a similar type story? And Facebook? But anyway.
And Facebook is another stolen company from a guy who designed it. And the Pentagon, he has all the documents. They basically, when he went to court, they ruled he was shopping it. So the Pentagon had the right to steal it. That was literally I'm summarizing it, but that's basically what the
he was shopping it. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, when you've got a computer program or you've got something that's really big, you're trying to find investors, you're trying to sell it to a bigger company. So he was out showing his product to people to try to get it out there. So that's what when you shop a deal, you take your deal around, you go from office to office, you show people. So they literally have all the documents. The government had been starting this spy program called Lifeline, where they wanted to track everybody's friends, socialites, their work history, where they'd ever traveled, everything. But they knew that people just wouldn't give the federal government that information. But they weren't able to, what they call the information that they were putting in, and to have a computer system that was 24 hours, 7 days a week working and compiling information and being live where people could interact. The government wasn't able to build the back end. So they literally work with this guy, Charles Leader, for 2 years. He shows all the documents. He shows all of the background. He shows everyone he met. And I forget the guy's name, but he had a daughter who was also equivalent to Ghislaine Maxwell. And I forget what her name was now. But that was also being run out of the Pentagon system. So I don't know if today we have time to get to the Epstein. I know we're kind of getting into it. I've got a little bit more. Are we ready to sign off for today?
I mean, do you have, how much more do you have? I mean, I don't mind.
Well, I mean, I could just touch base a little bit on Epstein, because I think now that we're seeing the Clintons are in front of us again. And they're claiming, Hillary Clinton openly claims that she never even met Jeffrey Epstein and that she never visited his island. And she's been testifying recently. And of course, there's extensive proof that not only she knew Jeffrey Epstein, but they were both guests on Lolita Express, and they often went to Pedophile Island. And these documents were released years ago, and they've just been re-released in the new Epstein files, where they've got the plane logs. And Obama spent a lot of time on the island too. And below, just in case anyone's thinking, oh, you know, I don't like the Obamas, I don't like the Clintons, here's a letter from Alan Dershowitz, which is Jeffrey Epstein's attorney. The Epstein was part of the original group that conceived the Clinton Global Initiative, which is described as a project of bringing together a community of global leaders to devise and implement innovative solutions to some of the world's most pressing challenges. Focuses of this initiative include poverty, climate change, global health, and religious and ethnic conflicts. And if you notice, it doesn't say it focuses on preventing poverty, climate change, global health, or religious and ethnic policies. It says it focuses on those things. So, Indeed, Epstein and Clinton's focus on poverty must have been the perfect front for human trafficking organization. Epstein bragged about buying girls or offering modeling contracts to girls in Eastern countries, then forcing them into his web of sexual blackmail and sex with wealthy people. And to this day, the woman who was currently Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend has never been questioned or asked or anything. Again, like the Zorro Ranch has never been searched. The
Which
Maxwell
girlfriend are you referring to? Which girlfriend are you referring
he's got a younger, she's probably maybe 20 years younger than her. And that was actually
The
who he was
dentist.
dating at the
The
time. I can't
dentist.
remember her name.
She's a dental student. He paid for her to go to dental school or something. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. And
Wow.
she's a dentist in New Jersey right now. So when you're understanding why does someone need a dentist or a plastic surgeon, there's all kinds of reasons. First, just if you're a criminal, they can change the dental records, that kind of thing. And B, if you're trafficking children, they might need dental work, especially if they're from a poor country. And also if you're hiding crimes and creating like new images for people, they're going to get some dental work. If you notice the guy that's playing Palm Beach Pete right now, he literally just looks like Jeffrey Epstein, but he's got some kind of cotton in his mouth, like it, so it makes his lip look bigger. So
Yep.
there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yep. I mean, and they've got ways of doing these things. That's the thing. I mean, we've often spoken about how far advanced these guys are compared to what A, we are, and B, they've ever let on. And, so yes, most definitely. I mean, and makes perfect sense with the dentist, because that's what they would be doing. Dental records are super important.
Well, in
So,
the Epstein files show her communicating. She knows people are having orgies and stuff at the house. And she's like, look, we try to keep these places clean. Can you clean up your mess? She's definitely involved in what's ever going on. So it's kind of curious that she's never been interviewed. And
yeah.
obviously, the Maxwell and Clinton connection is well documented, with the Clinton Foundation funding Maxwell's Save the Ocean charity. Hillary Clinton's State Department hired Alexander Gerasi, and that's Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew, a recent college graduate, to be the chief of the Middle Eastern policy from 2009 to 2013. So they've got a college graduate related to Hillary Clinton running the Middle East policy for that time. We can understand why things didn't go very well. His responsibilities included dealing with the Arab Spring, which is a complete collapse. The Western countries abandoned all of these people when they were asking for help. The Friends of Libya, now Libya is now collapsed. Their leader's dead. There's slave markets on the street. And the most successful country in Africa is now a third world country, is torn by war. And then, of course, friends of the Syrian people. And unfortunately, if you're a friend of the Clintons, that means that your country is going to be destroyed and the people who live in it enslaved, if you just look at their work that they've done so far. Epstein office walls host photos of the Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman and the Emirate Prince Mohammed bin Saeed. Prince bin Salman was arrested along with many of the Saudi royal family members in 2017. Epstein Island purchased by Prince bin Nayed, and if so, why? Now, bin Nayed claims Epstein manages money and he made the purchase without his knowledge. So Saudi Arabia's king, Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, has changed his pick for a successor. And that happened a few years ago when Trump was in office the first time, after he visited Saudi Arabia. The Saudis did a sword dance that acknowledged that Donald Trump was the new king of Saudi Arabia, and that the Saudi government has pledged its allegiance to Donald Trump. And so you can go watch the sword dance if you like to, and if you understand protocol, you can understand what that dance meant. So this is the crown prince. They had to be deposed because all of the people in the higher levels and the ones that were in the line of succession were not only heavily involved in stealing billions, hundreds of billions of dollars from Saudi Arabia, but they were also heavily involved in adrenochrome and the slave trade and the arms trade, which is the slave trade, and the arms trade is the business of most governments to this day. Now, could the arrests and transfers of power have anything to do with the weapon sales and invasion of Saudi's neighbors in the Middle East? And is Epstein an arm dealer? You and I have talked about that. Of course, they are arms dealers. This is the money. This is the business of the Vatican, is not only human experimentation, big pharma, and the banking system, but they also create and depose countries using these same people. What agency did he front for, and how did he help arm any of America's enemies? And you can go back to his involvement with laundering money from Iran-Contra through Israel way back when. And so Jeffrey Epstein supposedly just arrived on the scene in New York in the 1990s. But there's testimony of fellow Mossad agents who left Israel disgusted with Israel's policies, saying they worked with him. And again, as we begin to understand that these people are reoccurring entities in the human space in our phi cycle, that these people and the structures that they're supporting are actually, like you were saying, they have to do deals with these structures, deals with these entities to keep their power. Now, I don't know, a lot of you might remember the Bill Clinton in the infamous Monica Lewinsky blue dress, and that was hanging in Epstein's New York apartment. And Epstein claims to have purchased this wall hanging from an art student in the New York art exhibit. But a lot of these people that are living as males are females. A lot of the people living as females are males. And he's also he's in a dress. They're kind of laughing at us. And then they've got the red shoes, which symbolize the skin of the children that they've harvested and consumed. And I know that you were talking about Kuru. Kuru is the brain-eating disease that supposedly both of the Clintons have. Is that from Kuru, from your area, Kuru? I saw you saying you live in Kuru.
No, not Kuru as in then, Karoo as in Karoo. But
that's right.
Kuru, Kuru is the area in which this is an area, yeah.
Well, I was just wondering why that disease is named that. As you've been explaining, it's a big sacrifice area historically. So I was just curious if it had any relation to it. It's the same name. It's spelled the same way.
Yeah, no, but don't you spell Kuru, Kuru, as in the illness?
Oh, I don't know. That's not what they had in the one I watched. So hopefully, I'm hoping it's not true.
Oh, I'd actually, does anyone know how you spell that, by the way? Kuru as in illness of eating someone else's flesh, that kind of Kuru. The correct spelling would be interesting to see if it is. But even if it's not, it makes a lot of sense because, yeah, I mean, my gosh, if you go back to that area, that's ancient area, ancient.
Well, right.
And where we have a lot of the, as I always say, the Bushman paintings, a lot of the ancient tribal wars took place there. A lot of spaceships seen in the area. Yeah, it's known to be very sacred, that area, most definitely.
Well, and so there's kind of all these interesting ties that come up, and you just see information, and it can take you forever sometimes to figure it out, or you never figure it out. But
thank you, Lisa D. Sorry, Lisa D says it is Kuru. And yeah, so, but still, it's the same pronunciation, you know. So it would make sense. It would make sense to do a little deep dive on that. Because
Well, and the
true, there's
same people could have been in other parts of Africa. They could have moved around. They could have, intermarried with other tribes. Some of the words change. Again, they constantly change things to distract us and change meanings of words, etc. So we don't really understand that we're seeing. So now the Clintons weren't the only high level political players that had tie to Epstein and Wexner. You've got Donald Trump is photographed with Epstein. There's always been the rumors right now. One of Melania Trump's closest former friends came out and says that she was actually a working girl and that she met through the modeling system. That's how she met Donald Trump. So those are the kind of the stories that are going around. I've never looked into any of them. Again, the political people that we see in front of us aren't really in control of the reality we live in. They're just trying to create the reality they want us to have. So we have all these false idols and all these false saviors put in front of us. And actually, they're just part of the system and they're just playing us against each other. Now, Trump says he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. Trump says he tried to recruit one of Mar-a-Lago's employees' daughters with his operation. And Trump indicates he was the only Palm Beach resident that assisted in the police investigation. And what is the rumor that's always gone on is Mar-a-Lago was built as the summer White House by the Post family. And the Post family owned the cereal. They own some of the big cereal companies.
Post Toasties.
Yeah. Do you have it there?
Used to. I grew up eating Post Toasties.
So she's the one who built it as the Winter White House. And Donald Trump has gone in and he owned the original Benjamin Franklin post office. He went and he bought Mar-a-Lago. So a lot of these ancient buildings, because the buildings here in the United States are a lot older than they tell us that they are. And it gets really confusing because they also say that Mar-a-Lago and these other points that he bought, these historic points, are actually portals. And if you understand a lot what people say is really going on in the mountains of Iran right now and in Iraq, is they had opened the portal and the gateways to the other side are predominantly in those Middle East areas. And over the last several years, they've been opening those portals and they've been allowing entities in. And if you notice, CERN just got closed a while ago. And usually CERN closes before there's another kind of reset. So I'm just wondering what the next one might be.
Eek. Well, let's hope it's a good one.
So now Wexner and Trump, they did a lot of land deals in Ohio. And Ohio is the ancient area of Tartaria. Between New York and Chicago, there's massive underground city facilities and old train and railway that were there a long time before. They say, oh, it's just the city before the fire. Well, the ruins are much, much older than the city before the fire. And sometime in the 1800s, all the major cities in the United States burnt down between the 1800s and the early 1900s. And they removed the true history of America. That was a country known as Americas, land of the plumed serpent or the dragon, right? So these they're referred to in the Sumerian tablets, the Egyptian tablets. Our country is much older. The Catholic Church first conquered through the Jesuits the country. Then they destroyed all the real history. Victoria Roberts and Wexner and all of them. She remembers seeing Ghislaine and Trump's first wife, Ivanka, helping Ghislaine scout young models on more than one occasion. And if you remember, his oldest daughter was a model with one of the agencies that now has been outed as a child trafficking organization. And so let us not forget the Obama's connection to Epstein. White House records indicate Epstein visited the White House at least 3 times. And those are just the logged visits. There's people go and visit all the time after hours, etc. During the Obama administration, and Michelle and Barack visited Epstein on more than one occasion. And one of the first trips Obama took after leaving office was an island that was right next to Epstein Island. And they had some kind of strange pictures of a bunch of men hot tubbing and stuff together. It just seemed like really odd. And so a lot of people believe that Obama was arrested after he left the presidency. So I'm not sure which one of those is true. Another island down in the Caribbean or down in that part of the world is Guantanamo Bay. So I don't know where exactly Obama was led to after he left office. Epstein and Maxwell had huge connections to Macron of France. Macron himself was an international investment banker prior to his political career. Harvard and many other institutions accepted money from Epstein. He had an interest in genetics and living forever. He openly discussed starting his own race by impregnating over 20 women at a time at his New Mexico ranch. And I know you've interviewed people who were actually in those baby breeding programs. So this is actually a true story. Wide arrays of interest did not end there. Jeffrey Epstein just had so many ideas and so many different strategies to make money. A lot of people, and this is one of the main things I believe, and that he was stealing nuclear and industry technology for Israel. And if you understand what Zorro Ranch was built by the same company that built the nuclear reactor. There's 2 nuclear reactors, and Jeffrey Epstein's ranch is directly in the middle of those 2.
Yes.
So again, I think that we're going to find out his crimes were much larger. And one of the reasons they're all fixated with building these underground installations, which there's over 160 underground cities, according to a whistleblower, exist in the United States, because they are preparing for the nuclear war, and they will all go underground while we tough it out up here. His interest did not stop. And to me, this nuclear facility and the fact that they've never gone and researched his house, and that we have that nuclear facility right on the border with Mexico being occupied by the Communist Party of China. I think there's much, much more to this one story that they kind of just throw out there. And it could have a lot to do with the actual military occupation of the United States currently being under martial law for the last several years, because we are at war and we have been infiltrated from the inside. Now, another connection, everyone's always like, oh, you're just going on about the Democrats. Well, let me tell you, it's on both sides. And the used car salesman personality Mitt Romney was the one who built the original voting machine technology with the help of the Israeli government that has been eventually morphed into Dominion and has been used in anywhere from 70 to 100 countries since that time to cheat and put the communist infrastructure in power for this final thrust that they're going to be doing before 2030, according to their own documents. So Mitt Romney was right in there. Again, he ran against Obama, if you remember. And this is when I actually decided to stop voting. If I had to decide between who I despised more, I just decided to quit participating in the cycle and remove myself from it, because neither one of them worked for us. And the situation is rife with opportunities for fraud. Our votes are tabulated in China. And there's been much more information released on this. People can go today. China, Venezuela, Cuba. I was actually in Venezuela the first time they used the Dominion machine. I went with my friends to vote against communists. And shortly thereafter, they had to leave the country under threat of death because they were not wanting their country to go communist, and they were speaking out against it. So could the voting fraud perpetrated on American public by the China-Romney connection be the reason that Romney is a never Trumper. And one of the reasons he's also as a never Trumper is because not only Hunter Biden's associates all went to prison for the stuff he says he hasn't done. Mitt Romney was his son on Wall Street was laundering all of the money being stolen from Ukraine. Ukraine was one of the largest industrial nations in the world, even after communism. They raped and pillaged that country. They trafficked all their women and children. Then when they couldn't pay their debts, they lent them more money and they took all of their mineral assets. That's how a president with no experience in fracking owns a fracking operation. And when they couldn't repay the debt, which they knew they couldn't repay because on the other hand, they were raping and pillaging the country. Then when they couldn't pay the debt, they seized all their assets. And that's why the Europeans, France is a failed state, Germany is a failed state, England is a failed state, the EU is a failed state. So they now need to rape and pillage another nation to try to keep their countries on board and their citizens from rebelling against the system that they've implemented over them. So Epstein Island had underground tunnels and submarine entrance on his island. And this is one thing that never made sense. Supposedly Ghislaine Maxwell is some socialite, but his best friend could pilot a submarine and a helicopter. She spoke several languages. And one of the crazy things that happened during this time where the Epstein system was being taken down is they had a hurricane that hovered over Epstein Island for 24 consecutive hours. So it's highly unusual for a hurricane. And again, the United States has had military since the 1960s. This is well documented. You can go look it up, that we have been able to cause hurricanes and this weather manipulation. And that's not any secret. And the fact that it went over the island for 24 hours, that's never occurred in any kind of history that I've been able to look up on hurricanes. So the Clinton Foundation scandal is a huge story that's been hidden. If today, the last time I was in New York, when you went to the United Nations, there's always Haitian women with big signs standing in front of the United Nations demanding Hillary Clinton give their children back. Because whenever Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation go anywhere, it's a asset and human harvesting operation. And that's why she was down in the Haiti disaster and why to this day, nobody in Haiti has any buildings restored or any of their economy restored. Again, the Haitians are some of the lost tribes of Israel who are being forced to forget their identity and being starved out and being cut off. So the true history of the world never comes out. That's being suppressed by this same group of people. And now Laura Silsby was caught trying to smuggle over 30 children out of a Haitian supposed orphanage, but these children were not orphans. They all had parents. And she was sentenced to life in prison. And they got her out in 6 months. And they sent her to Arizona to run Amber Alert, which is the alert system for children who get kidnapped. So we've got a convicted child trafficker running Amber Alert, sponsored by the government and working for Hillary Clinton. Not only is she walking free in the States, she's been put in charge of it's kind of like the milk carton. They used to put children on the milk carton, and this would be a way to advertise children to pedophiles. And so they're using the same system, having people call their missing children in. And when they're in a car and there's like these car symbols and they put it up on the freeway, it'll say missing child, please call this number. And you're calling right into the child traffickers and they're going and protecting the child trafficker and not recovering the child. Now, the Greek temples, tunnels, and every part of the island has surveillance for the blackmail operations, according to witnesses and former employees. And what you come to understand is Jeffrey Epstein was just a cog in the wheel. This was actually an American intelligence operation in alliance with the Five Eyes, which is Australia, England, Canada, New Zealand, and that those five they work together and they trade information on each other's politicians because it's illegal for your intelligence agencies to spy on their own people. So they have England spy. That's what we saw with the Donald Trump dossier. That guy was a British intelligence officer, and they never advertised this, but he actually went to prison for doing the false document. That's never reported, but he actually goes to jail for committing the crime. I guess the British government had to pretend that they weren't involved, so somebody had to get taken down. Now, there's a submarine entrance on Epstein Island, and there's also right near there, Joe Biden bought a property on a former US base that's also a submarine base. And if you understand, they work under Admiralty Law, the law of the sea. So when they're committing all of these crimes on the sea, they're getting around the law of the land and God's law. So that's why you'll find they all have submarine licenses, they all have boats, and they're hiding out on the system. Right. Now, Epstein's personal chef, who traveled with him everywhere, confirmed the surveillance stories. And then he died since making those statements. So a lot of chefs have passed away. Obama's chef died on the island. And again, that was also rumored to be his homosexual lover who lived there in the house with them. So there's all kinds of these different crazy storylines. The presidential candidate family owns property on Water Island next to Epstein Island. So again, that's an old U.S. military base, and that was President Biden. And originally with Biden, it just looks like it's another payoff situation. That's what it just looked like to me when it originally happened, because they bought this property on this island and then they divided it into three and they sold it to one of Joe Biden's brother sold it to one of the Democratic lobbyists. And then that guy paid more than the property was worth. But now that I understand, and I've seen Joe Biden's funeral and I see his connections to Opus Dei, and that his family is actually a co-founding member of the transatlantic slave trade back in the Royal African Company, way back in the 13th century, you understand that most likely this is what their family was still involved in. And again, the Biden family and the Harris family were receiving reparations for their spies, both in Jamaica and Delaware, until 2015, because they lost their slaves. So they were getting basically lost business opportunity for the money they would have made if they still had those slaves. And you can look that up in the 2015 Irish Times. There is some basic information about that. So I wasn't sure if we're kind of getting kind of long in the show, or do we want to finish up this part?
How much long? I've got a call in 10, 15 minutes. So
yeah, I really think, why don't we end today? Because we're kind of like, we've covered the chef, we've covered the island, we've covered the buy-offs and the submarine base. Disney also has an island right there. And in their brochure, they have all the pedophile symbols about little fishies, etc. And what was known as one of the Greek rulers used to use a lot of pedophilic conversations, and when he would rape and murder little children and then he would push them off the mountain into the ocean, he would call them as little fishies. So all of that information is on the K Island, which is Disney's operation right near Epstein Island. Okay, so yeah, I think we can kind of finish that up for today. But now that we're kind of understanding who Jeffrey Epstein might possibly be, the fact that we have these fallen angels types that are harvesting our energy. And it kind of just, did it bring it together in the whole loop for you today?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Okay.
And
Sometimes I get all these things. I'm like, is this going to make sense to anyone besides me?
yeah, it really does. It really does make sense, and especially when we're looking at how the dots are being connected, and yeah, at least it's like it's low fruit, but it's amazing when we're looking at how it all fits together. Certain things on their own don't look weird or whatever, but when you see the layers and stuff and how deceptive everything is, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. It was great. And I know we're going to see you again in a little while, a couple of weeks.
Yes, I'll be back in September.
Yeah.
And we'll probably finish off the Epstein one, but I don't know if I'm finding more. These funerals are giving me so much more information. So thank you for listening, everyone. And I hope that it's helped you kind of connect some dots.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really what it's about right now, is understanding how the system works, because by understanding how it works, we can also dismantle it, because we know the truth. Truth sets us free. That's for sure. Okay. Take good care,
Yes.
everybody. Thank you, Simone. Always a pleasure to have you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Be good and be cool. Yeah. Goodbye.